So I've got this kit here from Guitar Kit Fabric, and this video is going to be more than me just unboxing this kit. What I'm going to talk about is why you might have a kit, what you can do with it, and some important tips if you're buying your first kit. So look, if you've bought a kit already, I suggest you watch this video. If you're thinking of buying a kit, watch this video as well. But in the description, I'm going to have a playlist where I go forward with this guitar and build it. So it's going to be a playlist that covers basics of fitting a kit guitar together and then various ways to finish it. Also in the playlist are going to be variations of kit guitars. So although this is what I would recommend as your first kit guitar, I'm going to have videos where I look at other kit guitars with different types of bridges, different types of necks, and how you might have to alter the way you build it to take into account those design elements. I'm also going to be a bit meta about why guitar kit building is really great. Anyway, look, let's open it up. What we have here is a layout very similar to every guitar kit I've ever bought, where it's into 3 sections. Now, there's a massive difference in the kits I've bought before. I've bought quite a few kits. When I was learning to build guitars, I started off with kits, and I think that's a great way to start. I started off with cheap ones and then tried more expensive ones. And I've got to say, starting with a cheap one is cutting corners that is not worth doing. And you'll notice with a good kit like this from Guitar Kit Fabric, everything's boxed. Often it just comes slightly unboxed, not even wrapped properly. Issues can come from shipping, along with all the issues with a cheap build. But anyway, we've got the 3 sections. You're going to have the body, you're going to have the neck, you're going to have the components. All kit guitars will need those 3 essential things, but each kit's going to be very slightly different, have variations. As I said in a video in that playlist, I'm going to explain what the differences are. And by the way, I keep these lids and these boxes to store things in as I'm going along. And often if I've got more than one thing on the go, I can use these as a way of storing and dividing up components. But also, even just with one kit, it's good to have all your bits in one place in these boxes. And I like these neck storage because I make my own necks or get lots of necks in, and they're just great for keeping things safe around my workshop and for labelling on the outside. Now, one thing you'll notice straight away, the Guitar Kit Fabric kit comes with instructions. It's amazing how many cheap kits don't come with instructions. And even the expensive ones that come with instructions, sometimes it's just an overview. And one thing I've got to say about this Guitar Kit Fabric one is how in-depth this is. It definitely gives you all the information you need to build with, and then sometimes it goes a little bit further so you can start to think about certain elements of building a guitar, like the string height or the action, and how you can change that and vary it. What I would say is, if you're really getting into it, you've read the instructions, you've built your guitar, you've tried some variations, go and look online. Like, I've got loads of videos about things like string height and action, which will be really helpful for you if you want to go that step further. Here's their little section on string height. It mentions the expected action that you want to get. Once you've got that and you're happy with it, maybe you're going to explore more about why some people might want different actions and different string heights. Like I said, I've got videos about that. This even talks about truss rod adjustment. So while I unbox the rest, let me just go into a bit more about why I think a guitar kit is a great way to start off your building journey. Now, things like truss rod adjustments, things like that, people are often very anxious to do on their own guitars, but it's something that you should learn about. I think all guitarists should know how to set up their guitars, and having a kit guitar where you build it from scratch makes you aware of why all of the different components are where they are and work how they work, and it allows you that opportunity to experiment with things. So with a kit guitar, putting it together, you're going to learn about intonation, you're going to learn about string height, or action as we call it. These things are essential to understanding how a guitar works, and even if you don't need to know it to know how to play, setting up your guitar can make your playing better. For example, lots of guitarists know nothing about intonation, and with your intonation set up wrong, your guitar can be out of tune without you even realising it, and without you knowing how to fix it. One thing I love about kits is it gives you that opportunity to experiment. So I'm part of a podcast called the Guitar Builders Collective Chat on YouTube. I'll leave a link to the podcast below. But we had an episode recently where we talked about building your first guitar. And it was very common that people suggested using kit guitars. And my suggestion with the kit guitar is, if you want to get into guitar building, or you think you're going to want to build lots of kits, don't be precious about your first one. Use it as an experimental platform. You can stain and paint and colour the guitar, but then you could come back to it, sand it off, and stain or paint or colour it in a different way. So you're just using it to experiment with and try out with. I think that's a great way forward. Maybe you're going to experiment with it with one finish and then buy another kit, do that in a different finish. Again, great way to experiment without you having to make a whole body, which can be much more complex, use a lot more tools. I mean, as you'll see in a minute, putting it together a kit like this doesn't require any specialist tools. In our podcast, we actually talked about the idea of using a body like comes with this kit as a way to experiment. You could easily take the body and cut into it and change the shape slightly. You could add bits to it. You could carve into it. Basically, it's totally customizable, and you've got the initial starting point from the kit. In fact, what I'm going to do with this kit, as well as painting and finishing it, is I'm then going to customize it. So I'll put a link in the description of this video to my playlist on all the stages of things I'm going to do with this guitar. The first one is just dry fitting it and showing you how to get through the first stages of building a kit guitar. Then I'm going to be finishing it, and you'll see on the side here, I've got a kit also sent to me by Guitar Kit Fabric, which will allow me to stain and finish my guitar with an oil, everything I need to do that with in one of their sets. If you're looking for an easy way into guitar building, then that's the way to do it. You've just bought the kit, you've picked your colours and bought the set you need for that. It even comes with the sandpaper. Fantastic. Now, some people might be buying their kit because they want to be creative and have their own guitar which represents themselves, something they've finished, in which case you're not going to use it like I've just mentioned as an experiment, which is, again, absolutely brilliant. And there's so many different ways to finish it. I'm going to use this stain that I just mentioned, but I'm also going to have some other videos with stuff that I bought from Guitar Kit Fabric, which allows me to finish in other ways. So like and subscribe if you want to see those videos. So let's just have a quick look at the bits that it's come with. And by the way, it's also come with a lead and 2 Allen wrenches or Allen keys, depending what country you're in, call them different things, to do the setup with. So I'll put that aside for the moment and we'll look at the components. By the way, you might have seen when I was unwrapping it then that some of the components, like the bridge, had protective bits of paper on them, which at this stage I would normally keep on. I'm just taking it off for the video, just so you can see how shiny and clear it is. But again, what I would say with some cheap kits is things aren't as well protected. Even this, the neck plate here, it came the wrong way round in the plastic backing, which means that the surface isn't going to be scratched because it's protected against the plastic. Great little details just to show how well kept it is. The jack plate is wrapped in its own little baggie to make sure it doesn't get knocked against things. You would have seen I took all the baggies off and out of the way. I like to keep the things in the baggies as well. That just means that everything's contained, easy to grab when you need it, and it adds that layer of it's not going to get scratched while it's around the workshop. Also, I'm not going to talk about it too much in this video, but you can buy upgrades for kits, which is always great. Absolutely do not have to upgrade anything, especially with a good quality kit like this. You know the components are going to be good. But if you're someone that's into this idea of really having a bespoke guitar, you should start with this, and then you can go on and change your pickups, change your controls, buy different tuning pegs, buy a different bridge. It's a great way to learn about how to make those changes to a guitar, which you then might make on a guitar you own yourself. But like I said, it's not something you really need to worry about when you first get your kit. It also came with a bag, which I haven't opened up now because everything's sealed separately in it, with all the screws you're going to need for the pickups, for the strap pins, string trees, really important, for the neck, for the bridge, for attaching your tuners, for attaching the scratch plate, and for attaching the jack plate. I'll go over all of these components in my video about putting together the guitar. We've got the scratch plate here. It's got a good protective coating on it. It's going to be pretty cool, this. Look at that. Now, one great thing about this pickup system that's been supplied is it's all fitted together and it doesn't need soldering. It's all push fit. So you can, if you want, pull things apart, put them back together, which is what you're going to need to do to thread the wires through. But it means you don't need any specialist equipment. With a cheap kit, it's definitely going to need soldering. And look, again, protective coating on the pickup cover. But I'll go more into this in my video on how to assemble the guitar. I'll talk about why I got this kit in a moment, but the other bit of component it came with was the strings. I would absolutely use those strings when you're putting the kit together to start with, because my experience of setting up any guitar that I've built and any kit guitar I've worked on is you often want to put the strings on and take them off, put them on and take them off as you're working on it. So using the strings it came with, brilliant. I mean, the strings it came with are going to be absolutely fine to use, good quality, but then you might have your favourite guitar strings that you like to use, a particular gauge, a particular make. Once you've got your guitar fully set up and ready, that's when you might change it to your favourite. But there's absolutely no problem with using the ones they came with. You know they're going to be good. So the reason I asked for this guitar when the Guitar Kit Fabric approached me is it's a telly, and you can see no holes on the back. That means it's a telly that has a bridge that goes on the top where the strings are mounted from the top. If you're thinking of getting your first kit guitar ever, I recommend something like a Telecaster. Basically, something with a simple bridge you can screw on where the strings come from above. If you went for a Strat, for example, it's sort of similar. It's got the strings that go on from above, but it's also got the tremolo bridge, the floating bridge, which is just one extra step. It's not actually that complicated. So it is fine for a first guitar, but it's one step more complicated than this. So if you're a bit anxious about building your first guitar, you're not sure you've got the skills for it, get a Telecaster, get a good quality kit like this from Guitar Kit Fabric. You can't go wrong. I'll have those other videos about how you use other bridges. One of the essential things when you put your guitar together is getting the bridge in exactly the right place. And it's a lot less tricky with a big bridge like this that screws on and doesn't have holes that go through the body and isn't floating. With a bridge like this, you've got lots of give. You can go forward a bit, you can go backwards a bit, you can go left and right or angle it a bit, and you're not going to ruin the guitar by making holes in it because that are going to be unsightly, because this big plate covers them up. With the floating bridges though, there are the screw marks which mean that you can't really put it in the wrong place. You're going to be following how it's pre-drilled. But if you went for something like a Les Paul with a Tune-o-matic bridge, they're a little bit more complicated to set up, and they can take longer, and there's more that could go wrong, but anything that can go wrong is just a learning curve and is easily fixable. So by going wrong, it's not going to ruin your kit, ruin your guitar at all. It's just, it takes a bit more time, a bit more experience to do it, and now you have control, which is why I suggest this for your first kit. What I like about this body is it's got on the top one solid piece of wood that goes across it, and it's what we might call a laminate top, so it's stuck on top of the wooden body, and it itself then covers one whole piece, whereas if you look at the back you can see the joins where the guitar is in three parts, 1, 2, 3. That's very common. It's very common for a guitar to be in 2 or 3 parts. Sometimes they're in 1 part. I would say I've just been doing some work in my workshop on 2 Fenders. They were American Player Series. Not the top of the range, but still quite expensive. And I was stripping the paint on them, and one of them was in 4 parts. So even with expensive Fenders, you know, it's not going to be one solid bit of wood. But this solid top like this means you've got one lovely grain pattern, and as what I'm going to do on this one is be finishing it. Here I've got my Nitro-Lac blue or teal concentrate finish that Guitar Kit Fabric sent me. It's going to really bring out this grain. It's going to look great. Whereas if I was going to finish it with a non-transparent paint, I wouldn't need a top like this, because even when it's got the joins on it, you're not going to see any of that because the paint's going to cover it. You can see here where that top is positioned on top of it. It's like a bit of ply that's gone on there. Now actually Guitar Kit Fabric do kits with more flamed tops, which are even more expressive. I would say, even though this is in 3 sections, still putting a stain on it, it will look pretty cool. You wouldn't necessarily be distracted by the lines on it, and you could even do something with the way you finish it that brings that out somehow. Anyway, you'll see that in my video on what I do next with this guitar. This guitar also has a binding on it, which is great for the videos I'm going to do, because then I can talk about how you might finish a guitar that's got a binding on. So the binding, by the way, is this plastic that goes around the edge. They do Telecasters at Guitar Kit Fabric without the binding on as well. And if you're getting something like a Strat, it's not going to have the binding. A Les Paul may well do that. And as I mentioned before, a guitar like this, if you wanted to customize it somehow, like, I'm not saying do this, but you could easily cut off that horn, wouldn't affect the sound at all. What I'm going to do in my future videos is change this F-hole shape. I'm not sure what to yet, or how I'm going to change it. And then let's look at the neck. So this neck, I can see on it that the frets are much better quality than on a really cheap guitar. I love that it's got the ability here for me to potentially finish it off with a true oil, but also possibly stain it. And one great thing about kit guitars is, like this Guitar Kit Fabric, they've got their shape here for their headstock, but you could change that shape really easily, as long as you're keeping the consistency of the hole positioning and the strength of this by not cutting too much out. You could adjust it slightly. Excellent. So like and subscribe if you want to see my video on the next stage of putting a kit together, all the steps you need to do for putting your first kit together, and then I'll talk about some variations you might have if you've got a slightly different kit to this Telecaster one. I'm also going to have a video about how I use these finishes on it, this whole set that's come with Guitar Kit Fabric, and a video about how I might customize the head, stock and the body. Then future videos about if you've got a set neck as opposed to a bolt-on neck like this, or if you're using something like a Tune-o-matic bridge on a Les Paul, the slight differences you might have there. If you've got your Strat style floating bridge, the differences in that. Till next time, happy strumming.